Can we set the record straight now? Was it fake? Was it a genuine interaction?
This was a genuine interaction. It's the loud minority that we were talking about. They're not the majority. It's that very loud minority. And yes, you can best believe that there's going to be some of those people upset with me.
Last weekend, a teacher from Boston, Massachusetts went viral on social media in a clip where he responds to a student who asserts that J.K. Rowling is transphobic. The teacher, Warren Smith, challenges the student to think for himself. It's a masterclass in critical thinking. Now, the clip's gone viral, especially after it was reposted by Elon Musk, and it's been viewed over 43 million times on X. The world is crying out for teachers like this. Let's watch the clip.
So these guys want to talk about J.K. Rowling? Is that so? What's going on with that? What do you want to know?
She's had a pretty controversial past. I just want to know, like, what are your thoughts on it? And, like, do you still like her work despite her bigoted opinions?
So let's get specific, though. Let's define bigoted opinions. What opinions are bigoted? We're going to treat this as a thought experiment. I'm not going to say what's right or wrong or what way to think. The whole point is to learn how to think, not what to think.
In 2019, she said, "Dress however you please, call yourself whatever you like, sleep with any consenting adult who will have you live your best life in peace and security, but force women out of their jobs for stating that sex is real."
So you find that bigoted? What do you find about
It was
in there?
It was deemed transphobic. I myself,
Do you find that transphobic yourself?
I don't really have an opinion on it, but I'm just going with what a lot of other people have said.
So let's pause it. Let's not go with what other people are saying. Let's try and learn how to critically think. So let's analyze the tweet ourselves.
And here is the man himself, teacher, volunteer firefighter, and now internet sensation, Warren Smith. Hi, Warren.
Yeah, thank you, Lee. Really appreciate you having me. And thank you for bringing this video to Twitter. If it wasn't for you, none of this would have happened.
Yes, I have to declare an interest. I was the guy who spotted the clip, and I absolutely loved it. It really touched, I think, what the majority of people are actually talking about at the moment. And I just thought it had to be shared. And so, yeah, I played my little part. Well, I say I played a part. I think Elon Musk helped by quote tweeting.
But it wouldn't have happened without you.
Of course, yeah, definitely wouldn't have happened without me. Absolutely. So, as we know, this video has now been viewed over 42 million times, and that's just on X. It's also been widely shared across other social media platforms, and I think it's fair to say it's gone absolutely crazy. When did you first find out about the clip going viral, and were you surprised?
I'm not even on X at the time. I am now. Someone messaged me. I saw a comment on my YouTube channel where I originally uploaded saying this Lee Harris shared the video on X. I didn't know what that meant. I was like, okay. And I think this is how it happened.
It was on the Saturday. I just checked. Okay. Saturday at 8:50 a.m. our time, so it would have been quite late at night or early hours of the morning.
Then that means that the following day, Elon tweeted it out, and a friend messaged me saying, "Elon just tweeted about you," is the exact words. And I said, whatever. That must have come as quite a shock.
I mean, it surprised me. I was sat at the dinner table, and it had already got quite a bit of traction. The tweet, I think by that, before Elon, before Elon even quote posted it, I think it already had at least 10,000 likes, and it had been seen quite a few times. I think there were some pretty big accounts that got there. I think Matt Wallace retweeted it out. He's got a couple of million followers, and I think that's how Elon saw the tweet.
I have a theory I want to run by you as well, because it had gotten about, it was by far the only thing I've posted that is, but it had gotten about 200,000, maybe a bit less on YouTube. So I was like, wow, this is really doing great and everything, but I never thought it would.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you start to see the views tick up.
I had been watching it tick up for 4 or 5 days at that point, and I was, quite excited, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And a colleague of mine actually, he had seen it as well, and he's like, well, I'll debate you on camera. It's in the classroom, same classroom. And we did a debate that Friday before going into this crazy weekend about Elon Musk. Coincidentally, this is the coincidence. I want to get your take on this. We did a debate on free speech and Elon Musk, and whether what Elon Musk is doing with X is a positive or a negative. He was saying it was bad. I was saying it was good, pro free speech. We did that, and I then uploaded that on Saturday. Sunday, this happens with Elon. Do you think, and I don't know if Elon saw that debate, it would be, it's.
I'd like to think he
I'd
would
like
have
to
done. That would have
think
been
that,
awesome.
But I don't know, I doubt it. But
Well, maybe he did. He's quite techie.
Yeah.
He probably did a little bit of research.
To make
if he
sure I
had
wasn't
time.
a
I'm
nut,
gonna let's
maybe.
just assume he did.
Yeah,
let's
let's
assume
go
he
with
watched it. It's been seen millions of times. I've seen myself. I've done a bit of checking on this. It's been discussed by a few podcasters now. I've noticed it made the news. It made the news over here as well. And of course, you had an interview with Piers Morgan,
Yeah.
which was, I think, just on the Friday, wasn't it? Sorry, Tuesday.
Yeah, today's Friday, so
Yes.
past Tuesday.
What was it like sitting down with Piers
Well, I
Morgan?
didn't get to sit down with him. I was just in a van out in my driveway, actually.
Oh, they sent a van.
Yeah, dude, it was crazy. I was at school. Producers called me. They're like, would you like to be on the show? Blah, blah, we're going to strike while the iron is hot. It's like, sure. He's like, we can send a crew or a van to your house. So he's in London, right? So I said, whatever's best for you. And in hindsight, I should have probably said crew, because I think that means they come in and like set up in your house and make you look better and everything. I said, whatever's easiest for you. So they obviously went with the cheapest option and just sit this dude with a van, one dude with a van. And I was like,
was it quite comfortable? Was it a bit awkward?
It was awkward
Because the backdrop looked really professional. Like they did a good job.
Person. It was just a little television screen, and it's just lights in the back of a van.
It must have been a bit of a wild ride. So one
yeah.
minute you none of this is happening. Life's normal. Next minute you see that this tweet's gone absolutely, I should say post now on X, gone absolutely mental. And then of course you sat in the back of a truck doing an interview with Piers Morgan being broadcast on UK television. Why do you think this clip resonated with so many people? You didn't take a position. Yeah. I didn't know from watching the clip whether you thought J.K. Rowling was transphobic or not. And that didn't matter. That wasn't the point of it at all. The bit I liked about it was that when you asked those open questions, the student was like evaluating the evidence himself, and he was doing it in real time. So you could watch the clip, seeing the student go, I don't actually have any evidence that she's transphobic. So the herd mentality just breaks down immediately, and that's why I think
it's that what you just said. It's also something that kind of has a pent up frustration with a large amount of people. I think a lot of people feel this way, especially with her, and it just doesn't seem to logically make sense to them. And perhaps I think many people are afraid to discuss it or question it. So then perhaps seeing that done in an academic environment, I think I've seen many responses being, how are you doing this? How are they allowing you to do this?
People genuinely believe, and rightly or wrongly, and I actually do believe that there is some truth to it, that children nowadays are being kind of indoctrinated by lazy, woke groupthink that isn't really giving them any tools for real life. And that's why you get, and this is why I think the clip resonated with so many people, is because we've all come up against it in social media.
In some form, not just social
that.
Media. Think about how many times at Christmas, you don't have Thanksgiving in England, but where you're sitting around the table with your family and you have varying opinions, and then you try and have a conversation. They'll make a presupposition or a grand overarching statement that is just such a vast generalization. It seems
my dad is exactly like that at Christmas.
It seems so.
We don't talk politics over the dinner table.
Yeah, and usually for me, when I start doing the exact same process, sometimes they will get very defensive. And what also made that interaction so interesting was that student, we should give him massive credit for this, is that he allowed himself to go, for lack of a better word, on that journey, and to really be honest. Really, it was what came in his mind. He said he wasn't trying to
and
fight.
That is what's lacking.
Exactly. And I
think social media has You're absolutely right to say it's not just on social media. This and that again, I think, is why this clip has done so well. Is because it can apply to almost every avenue of life, in your work, in school, just talking, Thanksgiving, round the table, having a chat. It does apply to everything. What I think we all face now as a society, both here in the US, I think globally, to be honest, I think is this dangerous groupthink. And it's this dangerous groupthink that we say that it's not just social media, and you're absolutely right to say it's not just social media. But social media, I think, has played one of the absolutely more so than anything else, because it's so difficult to have that nuance on social media.
Well, that's what all the great moments, those viral moments that we think about on YouTube, Jordan Peterson versus Kathy Newman. It all comes about in the exact same manner, and that's why we watch them. That's why they're so satisfying on such a deep level.
That is such a great clip. Yeah. That's such a great clip where he says to her that,
why does your right to not use pronouns like override a trans person's right to freedom of speech? Or to, he goes, because you have to risk being offensive in order to think. And then he turns it around on her. So, for example, look at the conversation we're having right now. You're perfectly willing to risk offending me, and that's perfectly fine in the pursuit of truth. This is rather uncomfortable for me right now, and that's okay.
Yeah, it stumps them completely. Once you actually talk through a lot of these woke ideological positions, they just don't make any sense. And I have approached this genuinely with an open mind. Like, when woke became a thing, I didn't have an opinion on it. In fact, if anything, if you go back to what the roots of the word woke means, I think everyone would be woke.
Last thing I would say about it, because it does bother me, people say indoctrination on YouTube, and because it's going to be a common attack. To be fair, what is the alternative? Because yes, we have other platforms coming out now with Rumble and things, but for a long time there, YouTube, it genuinely, I think Jordan Peterson got this right, that it was a Gutenberg revolution, where it allows the democratization of information and video, and there was nothing like it. So when you say, oh, you're watching people on YouTube to get information, well, where else am I gonna? What's wrong with that? Precisely.
And in this day and age of misinformation, and I mean, I've always tried myself, I mean, I think it's really good advice for anyone, really, is to not get all of your information from one place. There is, try and get as much of it as possible. Read mainstream media, even though I don't trust mainstream media as much as I used to. Watch clips on Twitter. Listen to the debates, watch podcasts, get your news from talk radio as well as newspapers and things like that. And that's what I try and do. Partly because it's part of what I do, so I do have to keep up to date with what's going on in the news. But B, because it is surprising now how much of mainstream media has been exposing itself to be agenda driven. I mean, over here we've got the BBC, and there's a wide group of thought now that the BBC, well, I won't just single out the BBC, all media, I think that's in this country. So
here as well,
all media now,
left and right,
people are losing trust. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people are starting to lose trust in the media?
Because they are a business and they are driven by ratings. It's just like Hollywood. They're competing with social media and YouTube. I just saw Pierce an announcement yesterday, the day after that interview with him, I believe. He announced that
could have been his last interview.
No, he's moving over to YouTube because it makes more financial sense. He's like, why would we, even on nights that there's really not much in the news cycle, we have to make up fluff because we're scheduled to go on. It's not good business. It does not make business sense.
Yeah. And the statistics don't back it up either. Just from a pure statistics point of view, young people now, they don't watch. No.
That would be the next point. It's more interesting. Yeah. YouTube is you have wider variety of personalities that feel more close to you, less polished, more authentic on a daily basis. You're tuning into these personalities that you feel as though you are starting to get to know them, and they tune in for that. CNN, it's Fox News. I'm not going to cast one or the other, but they're a completely different. They're on their they're in the death throes and they know it.
Totally. Well, Joe Rogan and even Tucker Carlson now, since he's left Fox, they're getting millions and millions of views on YouTube, and they don't need mainstream media. One of the things I started to realize, I felt so stupid to start with, is I started to realize that there was an agenda on the way that BBC News spoke about Brexit. They hated it. There wasn't anyone representing the other side of the debate, and that applies to everything, not just Brexit, but it certainly in the UK we've seen it more prevalent with the Gaza conflict. So our BBC, for example, is very anti-Israel. Same with Sky News, very, very anti-Israel, and they've had to apologise. They wouldn't even call Hamas terrorists, and in the UK, Hamas is a proscribed terrorist organization. So there's been this, so you get to see this whole agenda, and I think that is what's being picked up by a lot of people now.
I experienced something very similar that had a big impact on me as well. We were talking about, as you start to wake up to these presuppositions, these assumptions, and then you start seeing it when you do watch, whether, I'm not going to single one out, but you start seeing the bias so clearly because it's just every story is tailored.
And once you see it, you can't unsee it.
You can't put the genie back in the bottle. That's why the red pill analogy is so good, is that if you do choose to take this one, you're going to wake up and you're never going to be able to go back to sleep and to see things. Your perspective will be forever
I thought there might
changed.
have been something wrong with me, because everyone, the BBC, Sky News, all of our institutions, the government themselves, the government wanted us to remain in the European Union. They leafleted every single house in the country, cost them £6 million or £9 million or something like that, and they sent leaflets to every single household in the country to say to us, we think you should vote to stay in the European Union. And the vote was close, so it was 52% to leave, 48% to remain. So it was really tight. And then, of course, once the vote had happened, people just dug in even further. And I think almost immediately, the next prime minister is due to be a man called Keir Starmer. And he actually led the calls at the time for a second vote. We didn't win the first one, so he wanted to vote again. It was I hated every moment of it, because it was the most undemocratic thing you could possibly do. We just had a massive debate, massive country debate. Everyone had voted. We finally made a decision, and because it didn't go their way, they wanted to have another vote.
That's fascinating. I just stumbled upon an old video I edited back when I was going through all of this in my mind, and I was thinking, should I ever do anything with this? And I buried it out of fear. Perhaps I'll release it sometime now that we're talking about it. I can provide some context. I would like to tell you the story about it, though, because it really reminds me of that. And it was the night that Donald Trump was elected. I had not woken up to anything that I shouldn't even say I've woken, but before I even started entertaining any idea that I could be wrong about anything. And I had my camera, because I was studying film, like I was a freelance videographer, and I was in the streets, and they were marching in the Boston Common, and they were chanting, "Hey, hey, ho, ho, Donald Trump has got to go." He had been duly elected. He was the president. It was solidified. And I have this footage that felt you could feel it looked like a riot about to explode. There were police at the State House in the Boston Common. I have footage of them standing up there. I should probably release this at some point. And
there was a meltdown.
There was a meltdown.
A huge meltdown.
And here's my question is, how is that different than what you were just describing, where there's been a vote, and right? And now
it was exactly the same. Honestly, the way you're describing that could have been exactly the same the day after we voted to leave. The media were in mourning. Like they had the lights down in the studio, and they were talking about, we're the first country to have left the union in 40 plus years. We've made a big decision, and they were literally crying. And same with the denial from Trump, people who hated Trump. There's that famous meme, isn't there, of the woman who's just screaming.
It was like that. I have never seen that's why I filmed it. Now you have one side of the political aisle saying it is so wrong to question the results of an election. And I'm not going to try and take a position on that. What my logical issue is the fact that now one group has an issue when they just did it. And I have it on camera. I was there. I saw it. And it was heated. So you don't say that they were more heated. Yeah, they went in and there were some things that happened as well. But
well, they spent the whole Trump term basically saying that he was you had Hillary Clinton saying that he was an illegitimate president. Democrats were just as bad. They spent the entire time trying to get him on Russian collusion,
one thing after
for
another,
example.
and they still haven't stopped.
And they still haven't stopped. So, and that kind of, and my personal feeling, totally. My personal feelings towards Trump when I initially saw Trump was I don't like the guy. He doesn't fit the mold. And my initial reaction was that I didn't quite like him. But as time went on, and I am a bit of a sucker for the underdog, it's a bit of a British trait, but as time went on, I felt sorry for him. Like they just kept, it was relentless in the media, on the radio. It was just constant. Anyone who's dipping their toes in American politics at that time, everything was wall to wall, hate Trump. Why do they hate Trump?
Specific.
Let's get specific. Let's look at his policies. Let's understand. Do I think he's racist? Is he a misogynist? And I went through each of the claims and tried to work out whether they were true. And I ended up
people on both sides. It's a classic one where it is taken, and I've had this conversation so many times where it's taken at face value, but it can clearly be, it's just simply, it can be clearly disproved. And I'm not trying to take a position politically on Trump at all. I'm just trying to call out logical fallacies where I see them. There's something very interesting about what you were saying about the underdog. And why is that? And I think because it's true. And with these
they're weaponizing the entire legal
the more they do, exactly. So we've seen a surge in the polls recently with the indictments, and the more they've laid on, we've seen that there's clear data showing growth. So there is clear identifiable pattern.
And it was predictable, right? Is that people who were commentating on this, not just me, I said exactly the same time, and you don't have to be a genius to say it. You could work out, I think, prior to them doing this is why I thought the Democrats were absolutely nuts for doing it, is they'd obviously stored up a lot of this, all of this legal stuff that they were going to throw on Trump right at this particular point. It was clearly timed. And I just thought to myself, the people aren't going to buy it. They're just not going to buy all of this stuff. It's going to look like the Democrats are just going after Trump and they're going to use the legal system against him. That was my knee-jerk reaction. So I thought it was quite easy to work out what was going to happen.
But the people that are going to buy it are the people that already want to buy it.
Made their minds up.
That's the problem. So that we're not getting, I don't know. I would be curious if there was data to show how much shift there was, changing of your mind.
Now, going back a little bit to the clip. So there were literally thousands of comments on this clip. It went absolutely crazy, as you can probably imagine. People were saying, we really need to start teaching this in schools. And this other comment was, this is brilliant. And fair play to the student for listening to his teacher, recognizing the errors in his assumptions and admitting that he was mistaken to believe something that wasn't true. So can we set the record straight now? Was it fake? Was it a genuine interaction?
This was a genuine interaction.
So it's a genuine interaction between you and the student.
I teach students how to work with Photoshop, cameras. My background's in filmmaking. And so we're doing a newscast. The student was getting kind of cold feet, was a little bit hesitant to get on camera. And so I was like, we'll ease into it. We'll do a warm up to get like we did, kind of get the conversation going because it makes all the difference. And I like to lead by example. And I kind of got into this with the Piers Morgan interview, but very briefly. So this is a good chance to talk about it more. And so I try to lead by example, and I get on and I sit there and I'm just like, just treat it like a conversation. Just like you said, you're like the more relaxed,
so it's like a warm up, relax.
What's something? Let's pretend this is like a podcast. What's something? Because these kids watch a lot of podcasts. So what's something that interests you? What's something that'd be interesting to talk about? And that's what came out. And that's what you saw on the
And
video.
the suggestion was, it's a work. What great topic for a start.
Yeah,
I mean, it is a
interesting.
great topic to get people thinking. So it wasn't scripted. It was a genuine interaction. It was just you with a mobile phone or
The
a
camera that we
recording
were
device
using
of
for
some
the
sort.
broadcast.
The camera that you're
To
using
get
for the
him warmed
broadcast.
up, and then
Unscripted.
And then he went on after that. It worked. And then he went and did the broadcast. And I was like, oh, this is a cool little thought experiment. You know, for years, back in I'll admit, we had been talking about Jordan Peterson. His name's going to come up a lot. Dave Rubin, Jordan Peterson. I started watching them back then. And I was really intrigued by how Jordan Peterson used to record all his lectures before anyone knew who he was. I just thought that was.
I've seen a few of those
enjoyed
lectures.
them immensely. Yeah, it was just fascinating, and so that did have an impact on me as a teacher greatly. And so, not always I can't record all. Some places I can't. You know, I teach some classes where I have. We'll see if after this video I might not be teaching at Emerson anymore, but I can't always record there.
Well, hopefully you can get a chat with Peterson. That would be awesome.
Be a dream come true. That would be a dream come true. In the past, if you go on the YouTube channel, the Secret Scholars Society YouTube channel, you'll see some old lectures and things that I recorded. They were just, some are about the movie industry, some are teaching filmmaking.
Lots of Harry Potter stuff. I see you're a fan of Harry Potter. I watched a little bit before.
Did you recognize any of that from Jordan Peterson?
The style of it, definitely. Like when I was watching you with your glasses on.
When now I have contacts, but that was my first year teaching. Actually, was those with me and the glasses. When I was on Piers Morgan, he asked me that Harry Potter question. I wasn't expecting any of I didn't know what he was going to ask me. I remember I just got home from work, jumped in a van, and no prep, nobody's even there. And so he's the questions, and then he ends it, give 40 seconds or less, something to learn from Harry Potter. And a lot of that was from Jordan Peterson. I should give him credit for that. I didn't have time to do that and I was just trying not to make a fool of myself on the show. So, but
I found him incredibly inspiring watching him doing that, and I got the same sort of feeling watching your clips where you were getting people to think about Harry Potter and elements of the script and why it was put together and why did they write it that
the
way,
voluntary acceptance of entering the unknown. He did a great dissection of archetypes, and I learned a lot from him about that, and faced the snake and the symbolism. And I don't think any of this was intentional on J.K. Rowling's part. I don't think she went through and what archetypes am I going to hit. I think that they are instinctually ingrained within us. And then when you're laying out the hero's journey, it's, as a writer, you're trying to connect with an audience, and you're really writing for yourself. Just like a filmmaker, like what connects with me? And archetypes are ingrained within us. That's how they end up on the page. And so perhaps that's why the snake can turn you to stone, and you have to save the damsel in distress. And these are eternal stories that have existed forever.
So you kind of applying a lot of what's in why this clip is good, you know, this critical thinking style, you know, to your actual job. So you're not just doing it for warm-ups and stuff. That's how you apply your own teaching style. But from what I could see,
it seems to be the most effective way of thinking. So when we're talking about some Brexit or whatever, it's I try and look at the underlying, what's beneath the surface.
It definitely suits you. That was the first thing. That's the first thing I got from watching the clip of you in the classroom was this dude is just born to do this. What I liked, and probably what these teachers lacked, is your temperament with it. And again, another reason why I think this clip was people could relate to, or they loved it so much, and why it went so viral, is your manner you created. And I hate to steal a phrase off Piers Morgan, who's blocked me. I hate to steal a phrase off Piers Morgan, but you create an environment where the student felt comfortable to say, I felt like an idiot.
Right. Evidence is a good word, because it's just like a judge sitting in a courtroom looking at what is presented to you, the evidence before you, and then reaching a conclusion. Just like a judge is not supposed to have any bias or opinion enter into their mind. It's simply, and here's the interesting, is that they have to arrive at a binary decision: guilty, not guilty, essentially, or yes, defamation, no defamation. It can't be any other thing. And so there are people that criticize the video for the position which the student arrives at. But I would praise the student for his ability to arrive at a decision. That's the big and I think he's smarter than many other teachers that work with him realize. He and that video shows his ability to reason, to think what he is thinking about, and to be able to articulate that honestly, and to then move to the next conclusion and do it again and do it again.
So innocently as well.
Yes.
Just so innocently saying and openly coming to the conclusion. Like he almost kind of didn't want to admit. So I think the bit that everyone really liked was where he said, I've heard a lot of people. It's almost like he didn't want to admit straight away that he actually didn't know why he thought she was transphobic.
A lot of my classmates actually just say this to me, so I just kind of assumed it. That's what he said. That's how it happens.
That's it. You've heard it, therefore it must be true. But again, you taught him how to ask the questions, get to a different. Well, not you. That's again why I liked it, because you didn't force him to a conclusion. He could have quite
help
easily
him
read some
arrive
evidence,
at
like
it.
I said.
You kind of just guide him. I don't even know if I taught him. I just kind of prompted. You just prompt, really. It's because it's already there.
It's the saying. You taught him how to.
These
think.
kids have the ability to think. We are, as teachers, are supposed to bring what's already in them out, just like archetypes. That's why I like archetypes so much, is that it's all already there. And when you watch someone like Jordan Peterson, there's this crazy feeling that I know that already. Why is this such a revelation to me?
Yeah, when you see something like this play out in front of you, the reason it resonates is because you're watching what you expect should happen in society. People should come to conclusions through critical thinking. They shouldn't be jumping to conclusions because they've heard it. And when you see it play out in front of you like that, it's so satisfying to watch. And this is a question that I kind of just tweaked a little bit from Tess. And she says, do you think a lack of critical thinking is endemic in schools and universities? Do you think there are more like you out there who teach people to critically think? Do you think you're in the majority, or do you think you're in the minority?
As far as teachers are concerned, the issue is fear. I think the majority fears the minority. That they fear them regardless of whether those with the color hair that you're referring to, regardless of whether they are the majority, which they're not. The problem is that there are so many who will then neutralize these conversations at all.
So what you're saying is there are good teachers out there. They just might be too frightened to take a neutral line.
There are absolutely good. I'll start with the first. There's absolutely good teachers out there. I can only.
You're out there for a start.
Well, I can only refer to what I see, right? And I know there are good teachers out there. I think many of those good teachers would be. Let's be specific. Would be too afraid to have that interaction that was on camera. I can understand their fear though, because it's real. Like what we just said, it did happen. I'm in a tough spot. I don't know what's going to happen. It's scary, and someone else in my position might not be able to, would not handle. I don't know. I'm not saying that but it would be very difficult.
Well, it seems like you don't mind, and I admire that, because what you're doing is you're sticking to really. You're sticking to really good principled logic.
That's a really good point. But let's look at what we can actually measure, the results of this situation. Even though you say I didn't take a position, I can tell you that there are many colleagues as well, people that I can only measure what I can see, who, in their view, I did bad. What I did was as bad.
Oh, really? That's a great question. Have you had other people comment on it? Have they seen as people you work with seen the clip?
I can't get into my workplace too much because there's certain things I can't. But I do know that there's that there's many people that are not happy. And maybe, to be fair
In
to
as much
them,
as what they think that you have taken a position,
some I
are
do
they not
think
happy
that they
because of
think,
that?
yes, that they, in their view, they disagree about J.K. Rowling. I got to start pronouncing her name correctly as well. Rowling. That, yes, I was wrong about that. That's their opinion. They're probably angry for multiple reasons. But to be fair to them, another reason could be doing an interview with Pierce Morgan after that, and so then it's multi-layered.
I think they're probably a bit jealous.
There's going to
because
be
you're getting some
perhaps
attention.
some of that. So, but the fundamental that we're getting off on about me, the fundamental question is, why are they? Is their fear valid?
Yeah, and do you think that the majority of teachers? It might be impossible to answer this question. It's kind. The reason I'm asking is because it's kind of similar here in the UK. There is a
I think
predisposition.
The majority are afraid. That's what I was saying. That's why I say I think there's good teachers out there, but the majority of those good teachers would not have that conversation that we had.
I get that. It's so sad
because it's the loud minority that we were talking about. They're not the majority. It's that very loud minority. And yes, you can best believe that there's going to be some of those people upset with me.
And we saw a little bit of that in the replies. Again, 99% of the responses were very, very, very positive. But there were a few people that were like, "Oh, well, I think he must have already taken a position. It's obvious that he believes J.K. Rowling isn't transphobic. It's that herd mentality. They can't believe that someone has looked at the evidence and made a decision on their own that's different. But it goes back to
I
cannot handle
respond to
different
that person who's, and that's a common. I'm sure that. Well, he does have an opinion, but it's based just like the judge. They are then presented with the evidence, and then they have to come to a binary conclusion: she is or she is not. And given in that interaction, I said, "Can you provide me the evidence?" I then analyzed the evidence, and he.
Openly, so everyone could see it.
I didn't actually analyze the evidence. We together examined the evidence, and he then came to his conclusion. I did the one area where you could say that I had was where I do say I interpret that to mean, but I was trying to make that more digestible to say this is essentially, and I do think that it is. That it was pretty close to what she was trying to say. Again, like words being darts that are being thrown at a dartboard, trying to hit that bullseye.
I rewatched that bit because I had the same thought, and I thought to myself, did he lead him at all on that bit? I rewatched it. You are not leading. I tried to
accurately represent that as much as I could, what her words are.
Yeah, saying. You're giving an example, and that to me is exactly what you did. You know, you said, I take that tweet to mean this. What do you think? Based on the evidence, and it was a two-way thing. I don't think anyone can say that you led the student to an answer at all.
What does the tweet say? You would read it and they say, "Do you see anything transphobic there?" And then I might have to help him figure out the meaning of what she's trying to get at, because she wasn't putting it as succinctly.
So, what are your views on DEI? And I can give you a couple of examples of this. So, just recently, Elon Musk shared an utterly ridiculous inclusion standard document for Disney. This was an internal document that went around Disney that basically is telling them what percentage of on-screen representation there must be at all times. And he's basically saying that he absolutely savaged these guidelines, and he described them as laws and as racist and sexist and discriminatory. And this is what I actually agree with him on this, the likely reason why most of the media giants' content, Disney, from the past few years has sucked.
Why is it wrong, though, is the question. Why? And I think it goes, again, back to first principles. It goes against the very dynamics that make America what it is, which is free market, competitive market, innovation, meritocracy. All these things are linked, right? You are removing that entire incentive structure and then reversing it from the top down and forcing it. and saying you now have to meet these quotas, which will then have deeper ramifications down the line than I think they can even comprehend. Because you're messing with the very foundation of what allows not just artistic expression, but innovation. That's why we have first principles to begin with.
This is why I went. People again might laugh at me for saying it, but this is why I genuinely believe this mindset, this kind of woke mind virus that we're talking about, is dangerous to civilization. It takes us back into this. We've been there. It's taken us backwards. We've been there and done that. We were racist in the past. The countries were, but I think we got to a point, maybe 15.
Groupthink is dangerous to civilization. We've seen that in history, time and time again. The inability to think is dangerous. The inability to tolerate thinking and in certain conversations. When certain conversations are not allowed, that's how we end up with Nazis. It's how we end up with Soviet Russia.
That's what worries me, and that's why we see. I think it's a really important question to ask: is do we think there is a lack of critical thinking in schools?
Yeah.
And I would suggest that the reason this clip went so viral is because people were shouting out, "Oh my God, we need more of this in society. We need to have more teachers like this. We need to stop this kind of regression of going backwards in society." And this is why I rally against it. I just can't stand it. We have people on the left, or the woke left, I should say, in the UK, who think that the United Kingdom is institutionally, systemically racist. And this is why I hate critical race theory. Teaching kids, I don't want anyone to teach my daughter that she has to feel guilty for having white skin, or I don't want anyone to teach my daughter to look at someone's skin color and come to a judgment on how that person is, whether they're oppressed or not. Oh, they've got a certain skin color, so therefore they must be oppressed. I don't want her to learn any of this.
I think I'm comfortable saying that I don't think it's a good thing to tell a little girl that she is guilty of crimes of the past because of the color of her skin. She's a little girl. She has not done any. It's just clearly logically false. It's not a matter of opinion. It's wrong.
So I personally believe in biological sex. I can't believe I'm having to say it like it's a belief system. It's just science, right? So I don't think that if you have gender critical beliefs that makes you transphobic.
I think that obviously there's a biological difference that yes, men are men, and there are some men who wish they could be women and would like to be referred as women. I don't think that gives them a right, and a lot of this is my opinion, and I probably shouldn't even be putting this out there, but I don't think that gives anyone a right to impose that speech on someone else. So I'm trying here. So you can, everyone should be able to live their best, like do what they like, but what is important to them does not get to override what is important to someone else.
Yeah. And I agreed with the kid. Like, I hadn't found anything myself that's ever, I've seen loads of people on social media as well. Find me someone, if someone can find me something that J.K. Rowling has said that's transphobic, put it in this thread, I'll wait, because everyone knows there isn't anything that you can actually find about it, evidentially, because like you, I want to find out for myself. And I have not seen or read anything that would make me think that she's transphobic in the slightest.
Box, and it starts out the problem claiming that the problem is so deeply ingrained within her very identity that it makes it impossible to provide specific examples, which then means it's not necessary to provide specific examples, which is a common tactic that's used in many of these arguments, such as white privilege. There's no need to provide a specific example or a specific unit of measurement of how much farther you've gotten ahead because of your race versus. We don't need any actual data here, which then negates the necessity of critical thinking, because critical thinking is all about what can actually be measured logically. I have no problem with anyone who wants to identify as another.
Yeah, same.
Like a man who wants to identify as a woman, I don't think that anyone should. I said that though. It's fine. I just making sure I cover myself. They don't get to impose that on someone else and make them. Now, if you want to do that respectfully, obviously that's up your choice. But we don't get to impose on each other. That's what freedom and all the first principles.
Well, it's that, one of the first people that got me thinking about this was Jordan Peterson.
That's
when I
why
went through all of this whole thing, it's the compelled speech.
That's what launched
I
him.
couldn't believe it. Like this blew my mind that in Canada that they basically compelled his speech. So if someone says to me, I want to be referred to something like this, then by law, he has to refer them by that. And the point that he was trying to make is that I'd seen many interviews, I'm sure you have as well, that he has no problem. The chances are if a trans woman came up and said she wanted to be called she and my name's Tina, he would probably, out politeness, in his own words, call her she, and it would be an issue. But if he's compelled to talk by law, that's the issue. And he said that he would go to prison. He would not have his. And I loved it.
He's identifying that line that we've been referring to in this entire podcast, that we cannot be crossed, even when it seems small. Because the common response is, "Why can't you just do this one little thing?" And his point is, because I know how it ends in the long run, and it comes from the slippery slope.
Tell me a little bit about the Secret Scholar Society. What is this about?
It's the name we have adopted for this YouTube channel, where this video first. I posted this video, and my background is in filmmaking. In graduate school, I was working on my thesis short film, and I started doing some digging about. I was thinking I was going to be doing a documentary at first, and I quoted Churchill. I've always been fascinated with Churchill. Anyways, I really liked that movie, the Gary Oldman playing Churchill. That was my inspiration for my thesis.
So is this something you do as well as your teaching? Is this a hobby that you do? So your YouTube channel.
So I did undergrad in movie producing, and you can go on my website or on my YouTube channel. You could see some like a feature I produced and some short films, and
you have a website as well, which we'll put in the comments as well.
And I did a video about leaving LA and why I made that choice, and and then eventually I went back to grad school to study filmmaking, and I thought I would end up teaching at the college level, and I do some teaching at the college level.
So this is more like a hobby. It's not direct. This isn't something directly related from your teaching.
Not directly.
It complements
it complements the teaching, and it kind of is how we arrived at the name. It's the reason the YouTube channel is existing, because we've always, me and a friend who were trying to create the Secret Scholars movie that I'm kind of describing the story to, and the YouTube channel, for years I've been hoping to grow it, because a filmmaker needs an audience to be able to reach an audience, or you have nothing for your movies.
I wanted to touch on the American election a little bit. It's election year in the US. I love a bit of US politics. What are your views on Joe Biden? And the reason I'm asking you this is because there is there's some more clips going around about Joe Biden making more kind of gaffes on camera. And I think the general consensus is from a lot of the commentators, a lot of the political commentators, is that he might not, just understating it slightly, he might not be mentally fit to run as president. And if I can right now, I'll show you a bit of a clip.
My memory is fine. The president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate. A solid meeting with the Mitterrand from Germany, from France, looked at me and said,
elderly man with a poor memory.
I said, I'm going to be a president for everybody, whether they live in a red state or a green state. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
I actually genuinely was surprised that he ran in the first place, because in my opinion, he was already showing signs of cognitive problems back even when he ran the first time. So I don't want to sort of push you too much to a position, but looking at the evidence, I mean, what are your views on Biden? Do you think he can beat Trump?
I mean, to me, it's sad, because my dad's not doing well either. I see that cognitive decline, so I know what it looks like. I can recognize it. So medically, I think it would be you could make an objective conclusion that No, probably medically. I don't think he's in a very good place right now.
But who do I think would be better for freedom of speech and combating this kind of herd mentality and this groupthink that we've been discussing today between Trump and Biden? I mean, Biden to me just seems even more of the same, even more of, and that's the same with our left wing party over here. We're about to have a Labour government.
There's a big difference on the approach traditionally from the left side of the political spectrum versus the right, just on their opinions on Elon Musk and Twitter or X. You know, I know many on the left now kind of dislike Elon Musk, and so.
Oh yeah, he's the devil now because he's allowed people they disagree with to have their accounts back. So
there's always been a different view on freedom of speech from the left versus right. So it's going to obviously reflect through the candidate of the left and the right as well.
What are your plans for the future? Tell us what you've got lined up next. Have you thought about this yet? Has it even entered your head yet? What do you think you're going to do, especially with with what's happened over the last 48 hours, whatever? Internet sensation.
It's all been so fast that I'm doing my best to not make mistakes and to move forthrightly in an intelligent manner and position myself in a way that would protect me for if something were to go wrong, because it could. But if people do want to help at all or support me, the best thing they could just the Secret Scholars Society YouTube channel. It's Warren Smith Secret Scholars Society. We're going to be launching a weekly podcast. The plan right now is each Saturday. And so the first one will be coming soon within the next week.
We'll definitely keep our eyes out for that. So there you go, everyone. Make sure you subscribe to the Secret Scholars Society. We'll make sure a link is in the description so you can sign up for it. Check it out. Have a look at some of Warren's videos. Well, look, I won't keep you for any longer. You've given me so much time. And
no problem. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for sharing for everything you did.
I'm glad I could play my part in making this massive pivotal life-changing
We'll see how
moment.
it turns out. We'll see. But thank you so much, Lee. I appreciate it.